YouTube is filled with Silicon Valley engineers showcasing their six-figure salaries, shining lifestyles, and it gets picked up really quickly by the algorithms on social media because it's sensational. But the truth is, most of the world exists outside of the Silicon Valley and big tech companies. So today I want to tell a little bit more realistic story and share with you all my incomes throughout my career, full of ups and downs and disappointments. So let's dive in. I started in early 2000s, and as most people, I wanted to get into higher education, so I tried to study at universities. I actually studied at 3 of them and dropped out of all of them. At this point, I figured out I need to start making money. In a period of time, since I was 15 up until 18, I was working all kind of odd jobs, from a courier to construction worker and even in a McDonald's of all places. The weirdest job I had is selling CD discs with very shady informations that can be used as a customer database. I think it was straight up illegal, to be honest. And I was selling it inside the subway, not even on the stations, just walk through inside the car, give my pitch and walk out, and these several cars during the day. It was the weirdest job of all. Funny thing that I still remember this pitch I was saying inside these subway cars, because I said it so many times, it's just engraved in my brain. Anyway, this period of time, I don't think it makes sense to talk about money, but I think on all of those jobs, I doubt I've ever been making more than $15 to $20 per day. It was nice money to get as a teenager, but it wasn't much in a serious adult life. But of course you should understand it was different time. I was growing up in Russia. Cost of living there is very cheap and I was basically underage, so it was okay. After completely giving up on the idea of getting into the university, I decided I need to find something office-like because it's what everyone else was doing, and I always liked computers, so I decided I need to find something related to them. I honestly don't remember how I found my first job. There was no LinkedIn or anything like that, maybe on some online job board, but it was technical support in the local internet provider. I still remember the interview pretty clearly. Department head asked me a few questions and I replied wrong to all of them. I still remember he asked what telnet is. I answered it's something with the telephony, with the phones. And after that he said, "You hired." In case you don't know, telnet was a protocol to connect to computers or servers via command line. For all the technical people out there, it's what we replaced SSH with. So the requirements were pretty low and the salary was the same, but the upside of the job was that there was no work rights or regulations back then, or at least nobody was following them. So we could work as many hours as we wanted, and also we could work night shifts. And night shifts were the best because you're basically playing video games on your computer or watching TV series the whole night, and you get paid double. It sounds pretty horrible to me now, but as a teenager / in early 20s, it was pretty good. It's really hard to pinpoint what was the salary in the job, but I think it was somewhere in the range of $700 to $800, depending on the months and how many shifts I took. And also the exchange rate was much better from Russian rubles to the dollar back then, so it was decent money. And by the way, I'm exchanging it to dollars by the exchange rate back in time, so it's not current exchange rate, of course. After that first job, I also worked in 2 more very similar jobs in technical support, also in internet network providers. I think I got paid pretty much the same everywhere. Both of them were in my hometown in St. Petersburg. It was late 2000s, early 2010s, and I was living at my mom's still. And basically all the money I was earning, I was spending having fun with friends, partying and stuff like that. It was definitely enough for me back then. But it was also a time when I went travel for the first time in Europe. In 2013, I went to Milano in Italy. It was my first city to travel abroad outside of post-Soviet countries, and I absolutely fell in love in Europe. It was also the first time when I visited Amsterdam, and I thought Amsterdam is the absolutely best city in the world back back then. This completely blew my mind. First time realized how life can be completely different, and I think it's the first time when I started thinking that I need to leave Russia and move somewhere else. On my last technical support job, I got kind of promoted to the network engineers from answering the phones from the customers. I was kind of overseeing the network, doing some configurations, stuff like that. It sounds cool, but it honestly was the worst job I've ever had in my entire career, mostly due to terrible department head. Basically, it was a new role, so I had to call with questions quite often because I didn't know how things work. Every time you call him, you got yelled at. You got yelled how stupid you are, how you don't understand anything. It was stressing me out, but I had to call because otherwise I don't know what to do. The customers were waiting, or our physical engineers were waiting on the object. Yeah, that was quite crazy. And he was really rude, like directly saying you stupid with swear words, stuff like that. So I started absolutely hating this job. The salary on that position was a little bit higher, but it was 2013, 2015 when the Russian ruble exchange rate started plummeting. So at the end of the day, I was making approximately the same in dollars, maybe $800, $900, $1,000 tops. Eventually, stress from this job drove me to the edge. On one of the night shifts, in addition to stress, we still had to work night shifts as well. I did a huge mistake in the configuration of the network, which led to absolutely massive outrage, affecting many of our customers and a lot of big corporate customers. Next day, I got asked by the company head, and I was fired. Just in one day. I honestly remember it was rather relief than disappointment, so it was a good thing. It was 2014 and I was dating my girlfriend back then for 3 years already. She was living in Moscow, so I decided to try and move to Moscow and see how the life in the capital going on. I definitely was done working in network and internet providers. I've had enough of that, but I still wanted to stay in the information technology, so I just started looking at various opportunities and positions. At the end, I found a very strange company that was providing a platform for massively sending SMS messages. You know, the spam you get on your phone via the messages? Yeah, that was us. Of course, we also were sending transactional messages a little bit, but it was mostly spam. Here they offered me a deal, getting lower base salary, less than I was making back in St. Petersburg, and get the rest through various performance metrics. It was my first time learning that performance metrics just means company paying you less money that you actually want or deserve. The salary was around $700 by the exchange back then, and I've never seen any of those bonuses. But eventually I got promoted to a little bit more higher engineer, hard to explain, and I got around $1,000 per month. But just for you to understand the cost of living in Moscow, our first rental apartment with my girlfriend was $560. It was around 2 hours from the work, so you had to jump several transportation options to get to the center to get to work, so it wasn't a great salary. Eventually I bounced back and forth through a few more jobs. All of them were some kind of engineering or IT services management or server administration, that kind of stuff. On most of them, to be completely honest, half of the time I just didn't understood what I was doing. I was just going with the flow. And on the corporate jobs, because my last two were a huge Russian mobile network provider, kind of like T-Mobile here in Europe, and a huge corporate bank. And it felt to me that most of the people didn't understand what are they doing there. So it was a weird work. Eventually changing the jobs, my salary grew little by little, because it's the easiest way to increase your salary is to just switch to another job. But the Russian ruble was plummeting even more, so I think at the last job I was making around $1,200 per month. At this point, I was really lost what to do in my career. And eventually my girlfriend went studying in Lisbon for 3 months, so I decided to quit my job and go with her, and I spent 3 months in Lisbon learning software engineering. When we got back to Moscow, it was 2017, I found my first job as a programmer, and would you guess it, I got a pay cut again. When I was interviewing for jobs, I was so excited to start this programming journey. It was the first time where I actually liked what I was doing. I was ready for any salary, to be honest. During the interview, we agreed on the salary of $600, and they said I'm gonna go through the trial for 6 months, and then they increased the salary to $850. Of course, we agreed on that only verbally. After 6 months, I messaged my CTO on Slack. He was quite surprised, and he said he doesn't really remember this agreement. So he said, let's work a little bit more and we'll see what's gonna get us in the future. As you might understand, at this point, I was quite disappointed in all the companies, bosses, and the whole career thing. But I still loved programming, so I was trying to figure out how I can make money without working for another lying boss. I already knew about digital nomads back then, and I actually learned programming with the thinking about this work remotely and travel the world thing. That's where I decided to start freelancing. So I quit my programming job on saved money, bought myself a first MacBook, and I started working on a portfolio and getting the first customers. I quit my job in October, and until the end of the year I didn't see any customers at all. I couldn't find anything. I was trying to find them via a platform called Upwork, which is kind of popular marketplace for freelancers. It was also the same time when my wife also got burnt out on her job, and she quit as well, and we bought a one-way ticket to Thailand and went digital nomading. In January 2018, I picked up my first job on Upwork. I still remember it was the whole day of work and it paid $4, but I needed reviews, so it was fine. And after that, things started picking up and I started getting more jobs. Through the whole 2018, I made $11,500 after the platform fees. It doesn't seem like much money now, but at that point, I had been making almost the same or even more than my last office job. I was working 3 times less, I think, and I was traveling full time. So I was extremely happy. In 2019, I almost doubled that income and made 20,000 euro per year. My wife also started programming and freelancing, so things started looking really nicely, especially considering how low was cost of living for us in Asia and how low taxes we were paying. In 2020, I again doubled the income and made $40,000 per year, and that's when I started investing my money as I closed all of my debts and had a nice disposable income. That's when I started making side projects as well. I even did my first attempt of working on them full-time and stopped freelancing for a while, but I didn't have a good portfolio back then, so I quickly realized I'm not making any money and switched back to freelancing again. For the rest of the years of freelancing, I think I was making approximately around $40,000 per year for the rest of the years of traveling and freelancing. Then one of our biggest clients with whom we already worked on direct contracts, not via the Upwork platform to avoid paying fees and just have a little bit better relationship with the contracts and invoices. And they offered us an amazing opportunity to move here in the Netherlands. So in the middle of 2022, we did it. After moving here, I switched to direct employment, and my first contract was 4,519 euro, and the dollar was almost 1-to-1 to euro, so approximately the same in dollars. But I decided to work 4 times instead of 5 per week, and that means this number was cut 20%. Also, the Netherlands has something called holiday allowance, which is kind of 13th salary, and it's mandatory for all the people in the Netherlands. At the end, unemployment, it was around 47,000 euro per year for 4 days of work in the week. In 2023, my salary grew a little bit and I was making around 50,000 euro, and the exchange rate was a little bit better, so it was 55k in dollars again for the 4 days per week. And finally, in 2024, I decided to quit my job and start working on my projects full time, kind of reset to my old days of the beginning of my career, because in the first 18 months of working on my projects, I made 3,000 euro or $3,500. If you haven't seen my video about my 18 months of unemployment, check it out by the link in the description. And that's where we are now. That's the whole story. As you can see, I never earned huge numbers. It's not even close to what people making in Silicon Valley, even in the junior positions. And I think I still enjoyed my life a lot while traveling and working not as much, just being happy altogether. And I still managed to invest quite a bit into my portfolio and make a nice little cushion for myself, mostly due to having very low cost of living and paying low taxes for several years. Of course, the fact that both my wife and I are software engineers and we don't have any dependencies, we don't have kids, for example, that helped a lot. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know if you have any questions or you want me to make a similar videos. Just drop your ideas in the comments below. Check out my other video where I talk about 3 years of expenses during our travel years here, or the video where I talk about how I would start building my wealth today here. And see you next time. Doei doei.